My name is Scott Morrow with KJZZ 91.5. We are here at the Red Mountain branch of the City of Mesa Library here in the Mesa, Arizona. And I have with us a guest. His name is Aaron Blaylock. Aaron, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're a writer here, and I understand that your work is in the library here at the Red Mountain branch. If you would tell us the name of the publication or publications and the type of writing you do.
Yeah, well, I have 4 books, actually, that are published right now. The first is The Land of Look Behind. I guess I'm a mystery writer. I didn't set out to be a mystery writer. I actually thought I was writing an action adventure, but my publisher told me that it was a mystery, and there is a good mystery in it. I've written 2 follow-up books to that, Crooked Top Mountain, which is actually set here locally in Arizona, and then Cubana, which just came out this year and is the 3rd book in that series. I wrote another book separate from this series called The Unsaid. It's more of a faith-based perspective on our thoughts, our internal dialogue, and where those thoughts go.
And being here at the library, the City of Mesa Red Mountain branch, what is it that draws you to libraries now as an adult, and what drew you to libraries as a child?
You know, as a kid, the biggest thing that you could get was your first library card. You know, it gives you that sense of that you're starting to take some control over your life. That before that, you kind of rely on your parents for everything. But when you get your library card with your name on it, you can pick the books that you want to read. You can take them home with you. So as a kid, that's very much what the library meant to me. And I enjoy bringing my children to the library now to see the books that they like to read and to share in those books and those stories with them. Ultimately, for myself, the library to me is a monument to storytelling. I'm a storyteller, and we have these bastions of storytelling that is the library. You know, since people have gathered together, they've told stories, they've shared stories. It used to be that people gathered around a campfire or crammed into a parlor to listen to the literate read, right? We don't have those anymore. I mean, very few and far between do we find ourselves around a campfire. And I don't know where a parlor is anymore to put myself in, but we can come to the library and we can share our love for storytelling, whether you're a storyteller or whether you like to be exposed to storytelling. That the library is where we congregate as a community, as individuals, as families. We come together at the library.
Let me follow on what you said about storytelling. Tell me a little bit more about how storytelling, or about what storytelling means to you personally, and then what it might mean to society in general, and how does it fit in society?
I think we need story for a couple of reasons. We pass on traditions, we pass on morals, beliefs, we pass on idea, we pass on possibilities through storytelling. When we share our stories with people, we can share a part of ourselves and a part of our experience. We can use those to teach and to educate. But also, in a broader sense, storytelling is escapism, especially fiction. I write lies. The things that I write are not true. They're fun, but they're not exactly true. They're based in a truth. But we can use that to expand imagination. And when you can expand anybody's imaginations, you expand potential, you expand possibilities, where they can go, what they can do with their life. When you can broaden somebody's horizons or really kind of just pop the bubble that we set over our mind just by routine and everyday living. If you can help them to see beyond that bubble, they can do more than they would have otherwise done.
And do you feel that libraries have a role in that?
Yeah. I mean, libraries, they house these stories for us. They in a sense, they house history. They house knowledge. We can come to the library, especially important in this internet-driven world where there is all that information available to us at home. You don't get a greater sense of other people. And you can come to the library and you can be around other people who are seeking the same thing you are, whether that be knowledge or inspiration or escape. You can be and you can share what you've learned, what you've read, what you know. That's an opportunity that you don't otherwise get. For me as a writer, it's a solitary thing. to write, to put something together. I do it by myself. Nobody's over my shoulder. I don't generally share my stories with people as I write them. And the same thing can be said of reading. When you pick up a book, generally, you're not reading it out loud to somebody. I mean, I read out loud to my children, and that's a special experience to me. But most readers, it's a solitary experience, just like writing. You do that independently. The library is a place where we do that together.
And you mentioned a sharing and expanding. To me, that sounds almost like a role for librarians.
Yeah.
Is that part of what you see a librarian doing?
Absolutely, because not only can the librarians help you find a book, they can help to guide you to a story or to an idea or to a storyteller, to an author. We share those things that make us happy. We share those things that brought us joy or that blew our minds. Like a book that you read where when you get to the end and it stays with you, even after you return the book to the library, even after you put it down, those stories stay with you, and we're able to share them with each other. A librarian is like a sentinel. Like they stand guard, but they also light the way. They can bring you to new stories, to new ideas, to new authors. Because they have this central repository of information, because they have that experience and that love for reading and for storytelling, they can share that with patrons who come here to experience the same thing, maybe not with that level of experience.
Have libraries assisted you and your writing career?
Absolutely.
In what way?
So not only do I get to come here and share my stories, and it is a profoundly special thing to see your work on a bookshelf. And it's what I wanted. I wanted to share my book, but I also wanted to come and visit it, to see it. To see it on the shelf was really cool. So it allows me to put it up on the shelf for people to find. But also, the library has events all the time for me. I can come and I can talk to readers. I've been able to come and do book signings here. They have book fairs here. They have writing conferences where I can come and I can teach people about reading. Or about reading. I don't teach people to read. I teach people to write. I can teach people about writing, but the people who come to those, they are aspiring storytellers. They have a story to tell and are looking for guidance, are looking for a path to follow. So you can share your own experiences and you can connect with other storytellers. And that happens here at the library every day. I have met people who I've been able to help, but have helped me significantly on my journey as a writer and as a storyteller. I've found people here who are of like mind, of like experience, people who are far more experienced than me that have helped to draw me along the path to where I am now. And I'm happy to reach back to those who maybe are just starting their own journey.
Earlier, you mentioned the 4 books that you've published. Which one of those is the most latest?
Cubana is the latest. It came out earlier this year. And like I said, it's a completion of the first. The first book, The Land of Look Behind, and actually, Arizona is kind of the jumping off point, and you actually go to the island of Jamaica, where I lived for a couple of years as a young missionary. And this story came to me there of, what if something was in a cave and had been hidden for 100 years, hundreds of years, and nobody knew it was there? And what would you do if you found a clue to it? And so that was kind of the jumping off point, and it expanded into a greater idea, a depth of belonging, a depth of purpose. And what do you do when you find a purpose that you weren't looking for? And how do you honor that? And what does it do to change the course of your life? That was kind of the first book. And then I wanted to bring it home. I wanted to tell a story of the superstitions. And so I kind of used the same characters as a through thread. And I brought them home to Arizona, and they went on a little adventure after the Lost Dutchman mine, which is a local legend here in Arizona, particularly here in the East Valley. And then I needed to close the story and kind of deal with the consequences of the first 2 books, and that's what Cubana is.
Did you, when you initially started out with that first book of the 3, did you see it being a 3-book series?
No, I wasn't even sure if I could finish the first one, honestly. It took me a while. As the story unfolded, though, and as the characters began to develop, I could see other opportunities. And I did plant some seeds in the first one, but I promised my daughter, who's an avid reader, that it wouldn't be a cliffhanger, that this story would have a complete beginning, middle, and end. And so it does, and you can enjoy it independently. The first book also, or excuse me, the second book, Crooked Top Mountain, also has a beginning, middle, and end, but it does lead into the third book. So you can enjoy the first two books independently if you hadn't read the other. You kind of need both to enjoy the third. So, but my daughter forgave me for that. There's no cliffhangers. Each story does carry through to the other, but they have their own arc.
And of course, a person can find these books in the Red Mountain branch of the Mesa Library. If someone wanted to look for them elsewhere, where would they look?
Anywhere good books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can find them. You can find me on Goodreads, or if you just remembered Aaron Blaylock, you go to aaronblaylock.com and you can find what I'm doing, my random musings on just absurdities, anything like that. It's where I kind of put out what I'm working on and what I'm after. I would like to just really briefly talk about the unsaid, which was an interesting idea to me when you talk about storytelling. These stories I had kind of chewed on for a long time, the other three. This one came to me as I was going to bed one night. I was talking to my wife, and I chose not to say something that would not be well received. I knew she would not receive it well. And I thought to myself, what happens to those thoughts? Like, there's energy behind that. I thought something and it didn't go anywhere. And in the morning, this whole story came to me. What if there was someone watching? What if there was a heavenly bureau that recorded our unspoken thoughts? And what would happen if that person who was listening got involved in our lives? And this really unique and interesting love story came to my mind. And I'm not a romance author, and I don't write love stories. And this isn't strictly a love story, but there is a unique opportunity to talk about love and what that means and the different levels of love. And so that's a different story, not one that I thought I would write. But that's what happens to a good story. Like, good stories can come from anywhere and from anybody. And I think a lot of times as writers and as readers, we may have a narrow focus of, oh, Stephen King writes horror. That's not all he writes. He's actually written a tremendous amount of stuff that is not horror related, that is really good. So good stories can come from anywhere, and good storytellers can tell any story. And I think The Unsaid was an example of that for me, a personal example where I was like, oh, I can write like this. And so right now the book that I'm working on is a YA fantasy book. It's unlike the other stuff I've written. I'm super excited about it. Because as these stories come to me, I want to tell them. I want to share them. And I think as readers, when we look for a book or when we look for a storyteller, we're looking for a storyteller that we can trust. That's not going to let us down. That's not going to lead us into a path of darkness that we weren't prepared for. Or maybe it's going to take us into the darkness if that's your thing. But we're looking for a voice that we can trust. And the story they tell, as long as we can trust that author, we can be more open to the stories that they share, whether or not that fits our perception or our genre. And I think that's important, and that's what you can find here at the library as well. It's a variety of storytellers across genres and across disciplines.
Aaron Blaylock, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us here in the Soundbite truck at the Red Mountain Library.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure.